What's going on, everybody? This is Fry. So today I'm going to go through each hero, both for plants and zombies, and I will be telling you what, in my opinion, is the best deck for every hero. I will also add some honorable mentions if there's, let's say, a really good budget deck or maybe a secondary deck that definitely gets worth mention for that hero. I'll go through those as well. This is long overdue. I haven't done this in over a year and a half, so here it is. Hope you guys enjoy. So we're just going to be doing the heroes in order, starting with Green Shadow going across, and then we're going to go across with the zombies. So let's begin. Extra points to someone who in the YouTube comments puts timestamps for all the heroes. That would be amazing. All right, so for Green Shadow, in my opinion, the best deck is actually this aggro Green Shadow deck. The star of this deck is Gatling P. You actually have a lot of different Ps. We're even running Torchwood in this version of the deck. You don't need to run Torchwood, but you have 4 different types of Ps in the deck. Everything in this deck is just going to be going face no matter what. Very high attack guys. If you happen to get 2 click Ps, that's really good. If not, 1 is fine. 1 costs 2/2, and again, it will set up the Gatling P. This just wrecks opponents in the late game. Every Gatling P deck seems to be amazing. Torchwood is good to add some extra attack. Really, this is an underrated aggro card, because Shellery, this essentially can not only protect one of your guys with the team up, but it just adds 2 damage in that lane, which is sort of like adding in 2 damage like for free without charging the block meter extra. A little removal, little bonus attack. Very straightforward deck. Maybe honorable mention for Green Shadow. I'll actually add in Bean Shadow. This was sort of like an aggressive control deck with a lot of beans in it. You are able to keep bouncing everything they play off the field again and again with Jelly Bean and with Jumping Bean. And Brynetta and Dragon are the finishers. So most of these decks, by the way, you're going to be able to find on YouTube. Just type in the name of the deck, Fry 'em Up plus Bean Shadow, or Fry 'em Up Aggro Green Shadow. If there's any of the decks which I'm going to be telling today, which I don't have a video recently on, I'll try to upload those. Now those are going to be on my other channel called Fry 'em Up Gaming. If you don't know, that's where I post all of the long videos, the long gameplay videos, at least for the last few months. Some of the older decks you'll find on the original Fry 'em Up channel. But anyway, keep it going. We're going to go into Wall Knight. So the best deck for Wall Knight, in my opinion, is a nice, standard, really rigid control deck. And you're going to be using early game really strong control cards like Galactic Cactus. Hot Date is actually a very decent control card, particularly if you pull a card into the Spikeweed sector. That'll make a lot of damage. This is just a great early game control card. You got some heals, you got your big removal. I do like Briar Rose in this deck. We have several flowers. You don't need a ton of flowers. It works very well with the Little Buddy, which is very good at both healing and makes the Briar Rose remove one of your guys. It's also running Poppin' Poppies, which heals, combos very well with the Briar Rose, all the poppies it makes. 3-Headed Chomper and Walnut Bowling as the finisher. So a very typical standard control deck. For Wall Knight. Honorable mention will be any sort of the heal decks. Wall Knight is particularly good with heal decks because he does have Geyser, which can create these huge heal combos. This is sort of the same idea. You're controlling a lot of the cards are going to be similar, except that we're running the heal combos, which is going to be Heartachoke, Venus Flytrap Planet. You stick it into there, and then you can play Little Buddy or any of your other heal cards. You really don't want to run Taco. It's a little bit too slow, unreliable for this deck. Doesn't really add any tempo to the field. And you can always finish them off additionally with Heartachoke and then play Astrovare on the field. This will heal yourself for 10 and then damage your opponent for 10, since every single time you heal yourself, it kills your opponent. Running Doomstrom in this deck instead of Shamrocket, you can sort of interchange those as you'd like. Walnut Bowling is the last finisher. All right, let's move on to Spadao. So Spadao, it's a little bit hard to find like what is the great Spadao deck. And I really sort of have like a few ideas. One I'm going to mention right now as the first one that sort of sticks out to me as a really effective Spadao deck. I know this deck has Starchlord in it, but this deck actually I find wins very reliably. This is a nice aggressive tempo deck. I call this the Dino Roots. This is on YouTube. You're going to be able to... the deck lists, by the way, are not always going to be exactly the same as on YouTube. A few of them I've gone through and made a couple little changes, but they're mostly going to be the same. You're going to be playing a Dinosaur, or Blooming Heart, just any of your tempo cards. This will grow every single turn. This is one of the only good decks with Velociraptor Hatchling also. This grows every single turn. Whenever you draw a card with your Primal Walnut or with your Starchlord, that will actually grow all of your dinosaurs. The Triceratops is probably the most powerful card in this deck. We also have really powerful cards like Velociraptor Hunter, this is your environment. Fireweed, it's also a very good tempo card to be playing on turn 2. You got your removal, your Gravebusters. This deck actually is the full package, and it's nice because you get off so strong in the early game with your tempo, and if somehow they're able to control you, the idea is that Starch Lord really does give you value to sort of come from behind and win in the late game. The reason why I think Starch Lord is really only good in the Spidao is because Spidao has really good roots. You don't want to be running crap roots with your Starch Lord, but you do end up having Triceratops, and you have, since it's the Kabloom heroes, you're going to have cards like Velociraptor Hunter. This gets hit twice by Starch Lord. You also have, again, the Hatchling being a 1-cost 2/3 that grows, combined with Starch Lord is a really good idea. The other ones you can do with Spidao, again, really hard to say, and thank you so much, Sonic Fan, for subscribing. The other ones, of course, the live Twitch chat is spamming the Starch Lord copy pasta, for those of you who don't know that. All right, so the other ones I could just mention with Spidao, we've had success with sort of a version of Hyper Swarm. This is just a deck where you put a lot of little minions on the field, play very aggressively into Pinecone. You can also spam a lot of damage with your Astro Shroom, putting free cards like Puff Shroom, Shroom for 2, and finish them off with Sonic Bloom. This was fine. Another honorable mention would actually be control decks with Spidao. These seem to be okay. I don't know why, for some reason, when I do the control decks with Spidao, he seems like he should be like the best control hero. Maybe because his finishers are a little on the weak side. Again, Womp Bowling, Colonel Corn, these are fine finishers, but you got all your heals. You have a lot of really, really effective removal. I mean, amazing lineup of removal cards with Spidao, so ain't nothing wrong with this. So this seems like a very good control deck. Some reason I use it. It's okay. It's just okay. It's not like amazing, but definitely worth mentioning. All right, Grass Knuckles. So for Grass Knuckles, I believe the best deck is this aggro Gatling P. You can sort of accredit some of this idea to Reddit, where you're running a lot of the Bullseye cards, and then the Vegetation Mutation. I don't think they were running the same late game as me, so I guess this deck is my version of it. Again, a lot of really, really strong Bullseye cards are going to be ticking away at your opponent. You're even running Sting Bean, which adds a little damage in the water lane. It's all Bullseye and gives you a really good place to upgrade your Gatling P for the big finish. Bananasaurus Rex, bonus attacks. Really, I think we went 10-0 with this deck on YouTube. Posted this one recently, so that's a really good one. The other honorable mention maybe is for, thank you so much, Heckle Jack. Whoa, that's a lot of bits.
Fun, I promise.
Do this exact deck, I promise. He's sending me a Grass Knuckles. What is this? A different Grass Knuckles deck with... Okay, maybe I'll try it. It has doubled mint in it. So the other types of decks you can also do with Grass Knuckles that are very good are the Picanolith decks. So essentially in this deck, the cards you really want to run are Triceratops, your Health Nut, Picanolith. These are all cards that attack with a lot of with their health instead of with their attack, and then you can use combos of Grape Responsibility, which will double the attack of these guys. So using 2 Grape Responsibilities, let's say on a Health Nut, makes this thing do 16 damage. Using even 1 on a Picanolith makes it do 14 damage. And Grass Knuckles has Time to Shine, so just combining those two, that combo is really, really effective. You also have some plant foods, just in case the Time to Shine, yeah, you don't have that in your hands. This particular version we had success with. We were also running Repeat Moss. You definitely don't need that. This was sort of creative, how we wanted to use the Grape Responsibilities on the Repeat Moth in order to double the Repeat Moss's health. And if you have Picanolith on the field, then this will end up doing a lot of damage that way. It's not really a tryhard strategy, though. It's more of a meme. The rest of the cards around this deck, you can find the different versions of Picanolith, Grass Knuckles decks I've done on YouTube. Just type that in, you'll find them. All right, next, so that was the aggro deck. All right, so here's for Rose. So Rose is, Rose used to be really, really good when flowers were good, like Briar Rose and the Solar Winds. She's definitely become a lot less good after that nerf, since she was really relying on ramp for most of her strategies. Rose is still a very good hero. The one I'm going to feature for this is I'm going to show you the Fry's mid-rose and the Reddit's mid-rose. So this was the original version. I'll show you Reddit's first of this deck. This sort of is a tempo / control deck. You can definitely control them with everything you have. Rotobega, you have your Lima Pleurodons on 1. Rose has a lot of naturally built-in control into her superpowers. Snapdragon, Wingnut. These are all good control cards. Then you can sort of like in the mid of the game start doing a lot of damage either with your Astrocatos or with your Dragons as a late game finisher. Often you're relying on this. So this sort of is a mix between, let's say, a mid-range tempo to late game control deck. The weakness I found of this deck is that it was kind of weak against the control zombie decks. So that's why I'll just show you my version of it. I really prefer, instead of running all the Snapdragons, I think you should run Brainana. I think Brainana is really one of the absolute premier cards in the Smarty class and definitely deserves to be basically every Smarty, especially in this deck, as long as you're not playing like aggro. So I really, again, I also prefer Shrinking Violet slightly over the Snapdragons. I just didn't think that they were necessarily reliable enough, but Snapdragons are fine. Yeah, it can kind of go either way. Most of the rest of the deck is exactly the same, except for the main thing is instead of 2 Snapdragons and 1 Bog, I think I put in 3 Brainanas. I really think that Brainana, especially after you've played your Astrocato and this is striking through, very difficult to counter this with a minion. Playing Brainana in the next turn just completely destroys your opponent. The Rescue Radish in this deck, by the way, is in order to give you a lot of tempo on turn 3, so it sort of builds up that mid-range, that sort of turn 3, 4, 5 mid-range tempo you're looking for. It also heals you a lot because you can Little Buddy, scoop it back up with the Rescue Radish, then play Little Buddy. It also works very well with the Rotobega, because if you play Rotobega to counter something, they'll stick a minion right in front of this, and this doesn't protect itself. So the Rescue Radish scoops that back in your hand and gives you the opportunity to play Rotobega in a different lane, especially if that different lane has Bog in it. That will give you a lot of damage. In my version that I'm running Brainana, this also opens up a turn 9 combo. If you have a Brainana on the field, you don't have another one in hand, and you have a Rescue Radish in hand, turn 9 you can always go Rescue Radish Brainana. How many times have we done that combo and that just completely ruins them? You know, you've stalled them with Brainana once, they think, he's not going to have another one, and lo and behold, turn 9 you Rescue Radish Brainana. So that's a really cool combo. All right. Next, I think I'll do Beta Caratina last. So we are going to go for Solar Flare. So in my opinion, the best Solar Flare deck right now is this, Psycho Pine Clones. Now, the version that I put in the past on YouTube was not running Astrocato, it was running Sunstrike instead. It was also running Primal Sunflower instead of the Twin Sunflower. The reason why I made these changes is because I just think that the Sunstrike makes all of your guys strike through, and that's only really good once you've established a lot of tempo. If you get controlled or you don't get your Pine Clones out, the Astrocato just ends up being a lot more reliable. I also like Twin Sunflower because that gives you 5 Sun earlier, which means you can like Shroom for 2 Pine Clone, or you can Astrocato. So this really justifies that. As opposed to the Primal Sunflower, getting to turn 3 a little earlier didn't seem to really make a big difference. So the main point of this deck, and the reason why it's called the Psycho Pine Clones, is because we're running 8 copies of 0 cost cards. So you really want to typically stall the first couple of turns and then come in on turns 3, 4, and 5 with these huge swarm plays. You can play like a whole bunch of Pine Clones on turn 4, which is really, really effective. You can definitely set this up the turn before. Velociraptor Hunter, you got to be careful setting up Shroom for 2 the turn before, but you sometimes can do that, especially if the zombies have committed a bunch of brains. Stick your Shroom for 2 on the field, and the next turn you go pop Shroom Pine Clone. You just have a lot of tempo. It's so effective. The Molekil can flip all the Pine Clones into 5-cost cards. It can also flip your Velociraptor Hunters you played on turn 3 into 2 4-cost cards, which is very effective. It also can leap some of your late game cards as well. You want to make sure you got a hard mulligan for Pine Clone in every single hand. This is what the deck really revolves around. If you happen to not get your Pine Clone, though, you definitely can win again with either a Molekil combo, with your Astrocatos, or with your Cop Cannons. The Cop Cannons are really good because we have all of these little team ups in this deck. This deck also really makes more Spore into a really good power because it'll turn these guys into 2 Pine Clones. It's a really, really good superpower. All right. The other one I couldn't go in this list without mentioning, of course, is Aggro Solar Flare. This is still one of the better decks in the game. It's a little bit weak against control decks like Professor Brainstorm, but most of the time this is a very reliable way of winning a lot of games. What I'm showing you right here is the expensive version, but if you want to cheapen this deck up, you can get rid of the Wingnut and get rid of the Astrocato, which are 2 expensive cards, and instead you are going to run Bloomerang on turn 4, which is a nice finisher. It does a lot of strike through value. You might even anyway want to run that instead of the Wingnut. Wingnut's only good in certain metas. And for the 5-drop instead of the Astrocato, you're going to be running Power Flower, which is an underrated card. It actually is very good for budget players. Haunted Pumpkin is the only real expensive card you need in this deck. Fireweed can also replace with Wild Berry, which is does 4 damage on turn 1. You don't really need any environments in the budget version. You can also replace Blooming Heart, which is an event card, with Poison Shroom. So if you want to find the budget version of Aggro Solar Flare, you can definitely find that on YouTube. Still a very, very powerful deck. The Elderberry is just absolutely ridiculous in this deck. You have so many good things to upgrade. Next, let's go on to Chompzilla. So in my opinion, the best Chompzilla deck is actually this really weird aggro onions deck we ran recently. I think this went 10-0. This was amazing. So this is an aggro deck. Haunted Pumpkin, Bong Choi, you got your Apple Saucers, really powerful aggro cards are running. Since there's not a lot of great 3s, that I find the Jack-o'-lantern is pretty good, especially if you play this on 3. If they don't remove it, you can actually use a plant food, which will make it strike through again, hit the opposing minion, hit your opponent's face, and actually grow a lot. So that seems to be a good combo. Also on turn 3, a little bit creative, running the Magnifying Grass, which again in the late game, if they happen to control you, this will give you an opportunity to win in the late game by playing a late Magnifying Grass, let's say on turn 7, together with a plant food. Which will do like 16 damage that turn, which is great. Now, the key to this deck is the fact that in an aggro deck, we're running Onion Rings. Now, this will make all of your guys into 4/4s. So the cool thing is that the weakness of aggro decks is the fact that they die to control, to a lot of early game removal, a lot of Bungee Plumbers, a lot of field clear. And the Onion Rings really gives you an opportunity against Professor Brainstorm, against Control Infinity, to actually win with an aggro deck. Because you can sort of just stall for the turns. If you think you're going to get control, just stop playing cards. Wait till turn 5, hit him with the Onion Rings. Now all your cards are 4/4s. That happening on turn 5 is just so hard to control, especially if you have some little buddies in your hand. These are to protect your cards like your Haunted Pumpkin, but it also combos really well with the Onion Rings. So this is a 0-cost 4/4. This can be played on turn 5 together with the Onion Rings. Which if you have 1 or 2 little buddies in your hand with Onion Rings, I mean, that is so much tempo on the field. You have a lot of great strike-through finishers like Astrocado and Elderberry as well. This was an absolutely incredible deck. The honorable mention I'm going to put is going to be, we call this Make Me Cry Daddy. This was Heal deck. There's a lot of different options. I do like it with the Onion Rings again. Because little buddies, because all these cards really end up being a lot better with Onion Rings. This, you're sort of like stalling. You're really letting your opponent, it's called Make Me Cry, because you're letting your opponent hit you a bunch of times first few turns. And then you're coming in with a heal combo with your Heartichoke. You play this into a Venus Flytrap planet. That will create this heal loop. You keep damaging your opponent, and then you heal, and you damage your opponent, especially just with a little buddy or anything like that. And again, in the late game, you can actually make all of your cards start much more powerful with the Onion Ring. So that was the honorable mention. This deck did perform pretty well up in here. All right, let's move right along. Sliding my camera over. We'll move right along to Citron. Make sure I do Beta Carotene in the end. I don't want to forget. So for Citron, it's been really hard to find just the amazing Citron deck. I'm going to... these are kind of just both honorable mentions. You can definitely go control Citron. Your basic removal, remove everything. You got your Brainanas to counter their tricks. You got your Pop and Poppies for healers. And you have one of the best finishers in the game, Dark Matter Dragon Fruit. I'm not sure why with Citron. I feel like this deck doesn't work that well. It could be because the superpowers are not great at controlling. The only one that's okay is Transmogrify, and it really doesn't do that much. I guess I don't have all 4 of his superpowers up on the screen here, but Root Wall, Nut Signal, and Peel Shield really don't do that much in terms of controlling. They're more in terms of tempo, but it's okay. There is also a tempo Citron deck with like Triceratops where you're continuously growing. The problem again with Citron though is that he doesn't have good, like for tempo decks, he doesn't have bonus attacks, he doesn't have plant food or anything like that. That's the reason why just keeping a Triceratops alive and hoping that you're able to answer whatever they put in front of it is not necessarily a great strategy. Sort of the same thing with Pecanolith deck. You can do this. The Grass Knuckles version, again, is way better because you have plant food, you have time to shine. You have ways to finish them off with these big combos, but you could do the same thing where you're stalling. This deck does win a lot of games. You got your Triceratops, you got your Health Nuts and your Pecanoliths. You double up their health using the Grape Responsibility, which gives them a lot of attack. And in this deck, you're going to have to use Gravebusters and Shamrockets and Hot Date to really remove whatever they play in front of your big minions if they happen to front it, rather than just hitting them immediately. It gives the zombies an opportunity, you know, to respond to these cards, and you have to kill them in the attack phase rather than during your playing cards phase. Killing them during the card play phase is good. Brain Nano definitely helps because it makes them not able to respond, so kind of just as good. All right. Next, I am going to show you a couple of Cycle Cap decks. So I think that right now, I used to say Cycle Cap was the clear best one. I think if you're playing against opponents who really know how to play against Cycle Cap, it becomes less good. It's still a very good deck. So I'm going to get to Cycle Cap in just a second, and I'll explain exactly what opponents can do to really beat Cycle Cap. But I'm going to go with the Hyperswarm. This was sort of adapted from Reddit. They, of course, run Cro-Magnolia. I run Pineclone. That's the main difference between these decks. You're swarming with a lot of small cards. Your Astroshoom, you want to play this as late in the game as possible, because the later you play, the more stun you have, the more damage this will do to your opponent's face. Sometimes, like against Super Brains, you can pull this off by playing this on turn 1, especially if you have something to protect it. You're just putting a lot of damage on the field. Eventually, you can turn everything into Pineclones. Again, you don't want to get field cleared. The weakness of aggro decks is to get a lot of small removal, and Pineclone, in my opinion, really is one of the most effective cards. Playing around small removal, doing 2 damage a bunch of times is easier. 3 damage, not as easy. So that's a really good way to just buff up all your cards. You have very powerful cards like the Rotobega, which will be doing 4, and you have Sonic Bloom as a finisher. So this might be the this might be the best Nightcap deck. I'll show you Cycle Cap though, which is sort of the typical yeah. Gangsta's Paradise, definitely not. Here's the typical Cycle Cap deck. This is still very good. I don't know why I have a this was a mistake. This has to be a Pineclone. I was probably experimenting for funsies, but yeah, this is Cycle Cap. This is the real one. You're basically stalling for the first couple of turns if you need a control with your Shroom for 2 or with your Lima Pleurodon, even stalling with Cosmic Beam, definitely Berry Blast. You want to wait until you have a very clean time to play Planet of the Grapes. The biggest mistake people make when they play Cycle Cap is they're not careful with this card. If you play this on turn 3 and the opponent, you know, zombie had passed and they have 3 brains, this is almost always going to get covered before it gets value. So the only time you play Planet of the Grapes is when your opponent has already spent their brains enough that they do not have any environments that can cover Planet of the Grapes. Maybe if they've already used an environment or 2, then it's safer to play because they probably don't have more in their hand. Or if it's turn 5, you play Planet of the Grapes and then you start playing your Astroshoom into it, and you start playing your Puffshroom and your Shroom for 2. You got to draw at least 2 or 3 cards out of each Planet of the Grapes in order that you're able to draw more cards and get your next one. So again, of course, you're going to be putting your Astroshoom in Planet of the Grapes. Every time you play a minion, it does damage to your opponent's face. You draw an extra card. Same thing with Admiral Navy Bean. If you play a Bean, this will also draw you cards every single time you play one of the few Bean cards running in this deck. I believe in the original version, I was also running a couple of Spring Beans instead of these 2 Sonic Blooms, so I guess I'll add that. It looks like I messed up this version. I thought I had a full Cycle Cap. Pretty sure this is the version now. I do think it's really important in this deck to run Pineclone because it gives you another win condition in case you don't get Planet of the Grapes. You really want a hard mulligan for Planet of the Grapes in every starting hand. But again, if you don't have this, you're able to really swarm the field. You can, on turns 4 or 5, you have your free Puffshroom, so really get a lot of Pineclones. You can do a lot of damage that way and then finish them off with your Astroshoom to face, with your Admiral Navy Beam to face, and of course with your big Sonic Blooms. So yep, that is Cycle Cap. Again, the way that opponents can sort of play around Cycle Cap is by being, running a lot of cheap environments, especially like Trapper territory, and waiting very patiently, always leaving over 1 brain, spending every brain except for 1, and leaving that 1 brain to cover your Planet of the Grapes with the Trapper territory. You can actually get a lot of tempo early in the game against Cycle Cap, who isn't great at controlling the early game, and really forcing them to really play their Planet of Grapes, get almost no value from it, and gain tempo on them. So I feel like if you really know what you're doing against Cycle Cap, it's a little bit easier to play around. All right. So the next deck for Captain Combustible, this is a tough one because there's so many good Captain Combustible decks, but I'm going to show you the typical one and then the weird one. The typical one is going to be Captain Quick Win. This is your typical, really aggressive Captain Combustible deck. He has such a good aggro lineup, particularly with Repeat Moss. Repeat Moss gives you an option that even if you get controlled in the late game, you have a way of winning. You don't need a lot of tricks with this. You just use this with Captain Combustible's superpowers, particularly Blazing Bark, and then Time to Shine is an 18 damage combo. Blazing Bark with Embiggen is going to be a 6 plus 8 is 14 damage combo. You can also draw more superpowers because you're running Split P. This will be pinging your own block meter, plus the opponent's zombies are pinging your block meter. That will give you more superpowers quickly. You can also use Blazing Bark on Bananasaurus Rex. This can do 14 damage if they don't have an answer to it. So really, really strong. You also have like the version, sort of like the one with Chumpzilla, that you have your Onion Rings. In the late game, just in case you get controlled, this will turn everything into 4/4s. You're also running Puffshroom in this version, so you can get a lot of free 4/4s when you play your Onion Rings. This also makes Repeat Moss, if you have one in your hand, into a base of 4/4, which just makes it more powerful. So on turn 6 or 7, you can easily just Repeat Moss combo them down to the Ice Age. So just another version. The weird deck that did really, really well, and you can find this on YouTube. I believe this might be on the original Frame Up channel. Is the aggro tempo control Captain Combustible deck. And this can, just like its name, can be played in 3 different ways. You can play this really aggressively, trying to put a lot of damage on your opponent's face with your early game. You can play it like a tempo deck, which you're developing your dinosaurs, which are slowly growing over time, especially your Apatosaurus. Or you can play it as a late game control deck, finishing them off with your Repeat Moss. I think I added the Repeat Moss since I made that deck. I took out like 1 potato and 1 other thing, maybe 1 plant food. But once you get your Apatosaurus on the field, since this is untrickable, it's very difficult to deal with. So you're able to use, let's say, Blazing Bark, Time to Shine on it in order to just completely wreck your opponent. So you can play control. Like Bong Choi is also a good control card, so is Fireweed. So it's really nice how you have these versatile cards that are very good at both controlling your opponent, or you can use your Banana Bombs and Berry Blast to remove what they play off the field to either give you more tempo or to make your guys hit face. So really can be played in a number of ways. That's a really, this is a really, really good deck. I think that deck went 10-0. All right, Beta Carotina. So Beta Carotina is very similar to Citron. Let's see if this was the deck I was going to show you guys. So again, this is your typical control Beta Carotina. She might even be better than Citron, even though her genetic application Lightspeed Seed, these are such bad superpowers. These two are really not bad, especially at early game control. Like if you have 2 guys that are early game control cards, sorry, you don't even see that, but it's Lieutenant Caratron I was pointing to. You're able to you don't need to run as much early game. Like I guess we have plenty of early game in this deck either way. But you're controlling them with your Forget-Me-Nots, with your Galactic Cactus. You can make a splash combo. Galactic Cactus explodes. It'll trigger your Paracup, do a lot of damage. You can gain a lot of tempo and then hit them with your Brainanas in order to finish them off in the mid-range. You can protect your guys with your Pop and Poppies, or you can use your Pop and Poppies to heal and then finish them off with your Dragon. Again, the fact this deck is sort of stuck in the super late game though against most opponents, it doesn't have plan food, it doesn't have ways of winning on your turn. You have to rely on the attack phase. It makes it a little worse. I find this deck just does okay. It's not as good as some of the other control decks. But yeah, this is fine. Why is the Wall Knight? I don't know why the Wall Knight does better. Maybe it just has more like OP, like 3-rated Chomper. I don't really know. Heals. Maybe more heals makes control decks better. You can also, again, there's just honorable mentions. This bounce control deck did really, really well. It's a bean deck that you control to the late game. Hit them with Brainana Dragon. Nothing wrong with this deck at all. Bouncing them every single turn is really, really good, especially if you have the option of either bouncing them or taking away their tricks. So if they go for a minion, you bounce it. If they go for tricks, you hit them with Brainana. So on turn 6, having this option is really, really awesome. All right, let's move on to the zombies. This is going pretty well so far. Okay, 4 Super Brains. Again, a little bit hard to to find a deck to call this is like the great deck in the game. I just find Super Brains, it's a little bit hard to build decks for him, but this is a really valuable mention. This is a deck I did a long time ago, and it's super powerful. Back when I did this deck, Barrel of Barrels cost 1. So I don't know how this deck performs when Barrel of Barrels cost 2. This was a very important card for 2 reasons. First of all, you need little tricks to charge your Trickster, make this cost less and less. And you also need little tricks to make your Raiding Raptor get bigger. The idea of this deck was to either finish your opponent off with a Trickster. You can teleport Trickster. Probably in this version of the deck, I would be running Mustache Monument. Where is Mustache Monument? Just for those of you. I find that is really, really good with Trickster. It doesn't work with Raptor as well. It teleports better with Raptor. But I probably would find a way to run Mustache Monument in this deck. So either you can hit them with a bunch of Tricksters and teleport Trickster bonus attack, or you can teleport in a Raptor and then play a bunch of cards. So if you have cheap superpowers from your Dr. Spacetime, sometimes those will draw you cards. Dr. Spacetime and Thinking Cap, this will draw you cards. Some of those cards will be free. You can play them together with your Raptor. You can always play teleports after your Raptor. You can play Barrel of Barrels, and then you can use bonus attacks once your Raptor. Again, this card grows a lot, so you can either use bonus attacks to activate it. You can bounce what they play in front of it. You can play laser-based alpha, or you can, of course, use your Carried Away, your superpower on a Raptor. This will very often just finish off your opponent. Getting Raptor to 10 attack is not even that difficult, so that's a really, really powerful combo. Love this deck with the Carried Away. I'll show you guys sort of a... and guys, again, we really appreciate the Reddit community. I really, these types of things, I know I'm mentioning some of the Reddit decks. It'd be really nice if you guys were super, super polite and cordial. I think most of the Reddit community is, and there's a few maybe people who ruin it for them. So please stop like spamming the chat with your decks and stuff like this. It's really, anyway. The other deck I kind of want to show you is a budget deck. Everyone has Super Brains, so I'll show you a decent budget deck. This is Pirates. I'm going to show you quite a few Pirate decks on the zombie side. Pirates are really, really strong. Headstone Carver. This will buff all of your gravestones by 1/1. I just added an extra 1-drop, 2 Chimney Sweeps. Pretty powerful. It's really good to play this on 1 because it really makes your Swashbucklers more likely to survive on 2. Swashbuckler will be buffing up all your pirates. The only sort of expensive event card in this deck is going to be the Clapton Flameface. Really, really important for pirate decks, but you also got your Monkey Pirate. I put in a few amphibious minions. This also adds a lot. Tempo decks in this game, especially on the zombie side, need to be pretty aggressive, and Fishing Imp is a nice aggressive, also cheap card put in the water. You got your Stealthy Imps, you got your removal. If you have Pogos, it is better than Backyard Bounce. Also running Surprise Gargantuar, which again is a pretty good budget finisher. It's also a gravestone. So, you know, your grave removal, your opponent's grave removal will be used up on cheaper cards. It makes this a lot more powerful. Really decent finisher because there will usually be a lane to do 5 damage. Also ran a Halocopter just as a finisher. This does work with bonus attacks. Really, any of your cards, once they've been buffed enough, really do work very well with bonus attack. You can even go Chimney Sweep on turn 1. Bonus attack on turn 2 is a very strong tempo play. So I really suggest this for budget players. Pretty good. Next, Infinity. Now, Infinity is the best pirate hero in my opinion, and the reason is because his 1-drops are a lot better than Headstone Carver. Instead, you run the almighty Conman. This is a pirate. This does a lot of direct damage to your opponent's face. It's almost impossible to answer this card on turn 1. There's a few cards that do like Bonk Joy. You play your Quick Draw Conman on 1, and your Swashbuckler to the right of it, in the right lane on turn 2. If they go after your Swashbuckler, this is just going to grow. And Quick Draw Conman growing is going to do so much damage. It's really same thing with Grave Robber. This is a 2/2 Bullseye, which in itself is a great card. This will also grow every single time you play a Gravestone by 1 attack. Plus, it's a pirate, so if this hits your opponent's face on turn 2 when you played Swashbuckler, this card just gets out of control. So these two cards really make Infinity, in my opinion, the best control hero. He also has Fruitcake, which is the best removal card, aside from maybe Pogo on the zombie side. You're running your basic pirates. You could go with Stealthy Imp. You can also go with Line Dancing Zombie. It could be better than Stealthy Imp. This is a pirate. Line Dancing Zombie is more reliable. Using Pogo and Mixed Up Gravedigger as finishers. In one of the versions of the deck, instead of Gravedigger, I ran Binary Stars since it is Infinity. So Binary Stars is a viable option for this deck. I think that, you know, it'll double the attack of all of your strike through guys. I'll put Binary Stars up on the field for y'all. So again, this with Captain Flameface, or even with your other finisher sort of we have in this deck, which is Moonbase Z. This will, you know, make your guys do a lot of damage, your bullseyes, your con man. I do overall think that Mixed Up Gravedigger is the better card just because of Pogo. Now, people don't like running Mixed Up Gravedigger in pirate decks because they, you know, if your cards got buffed up by Swashbuckler, then Mixed Up Gravedigger is going to go and reduce all of their stats down to their base stats by sticking them in the gravestones. But that's fine, because if you have a lot of big pirates on the field, just don't play Mixed Up Gravedigger. You're usually at that point going to be so far ahead. Just play a Pogo, play your environments, go for Fruitcake, even Bungee Plumber. Those will be the things which will finish off your opponent in that situation. Just don't play Mixed Up Gravedigger. Mixed Up Gravedigger gives you a way, though, to come back from behind. If somehow they're able to control your early pirates, playing Pogo and Mixed Up Gravedigger puts you so far ahead on the field. Bouncing them off the field and then getting a 5-5 and bouncing them again. You can then set your pirates up afterwards and come in and take over the game. And that's why in almost every single sneaky deck, this is seriously two of the best cards and maybe overall the best 2-card combo in this entire game. The other deck I really want to mention for Infinity, which is so underrated. I don't see anyone running the original Gangsta Control Infinity deck. This is basically a set 1 deck. I have maybe a couple cards from later sets, but this is actually really, really dominant. Bungee Plumber is so good at controlling the early game. You got your Fruitcakes, you got your Pogo Mixed Up Gravedigger, Line Dancing Zombie removed so they play off the field. I'm running Wrath in this deck. It could be there is a viable replacement for that. This just dominates. I really like running the Splash, the Barrel of Deadbeards. You can play this after the fact in front of one of their minions, and if you need to really get bailed out, you can play Super Stench together with that. So if you really need to come from behind, this will just reset the field. It also works very well with the Shark, because every single time one of your opponents takes damage, when their minions take damage, the Shark kills it. So the Shark and the Plankwalker really is the main finisher. You stall until turn 8 and you kill them with the Zombot Plankwalker. I think we got a 100% win rate during a stream. We went 8-0 or 10-0 with this deck. This is a really, really underrated deck, and really more people should be running that. Gotta mention Control Infinity in the mix. Very fun deck to play too with Plankwalker. Plankwalker makes Garg throwing Garg and all kinds of things. All right. Boogaloo, again, not the greatest hero. I'm going to show you 2 decks that I feel like work really well for Boogaloo. One is the Splash Gargs. I made a few modifications to this deck, like adding in the Bounty Hunter, but this is basically the same version as the original Splash Gargs deck for Boogaloo. I think that video was called When Garg Throwing Garg Throws Zombots. I'm pretty sure that's the most viewed video on the Fry'em Up channel, so you can check that out if you want. Really, really fun gameplay. So this is a really fun deck. I'm not going to say it's top tier. Really hard to find that top tier Boogaloo deck, but you're going to be controlling the early game. You got Extinction Event, Bungee Plumber, a lot of really good early game control. Even Evaporate, if you do 1 damage to opponent with a Bungee Plumber, Evaporate kills that. Really cool. You're going to be setting up your hunting grounds and really trying to put a number of cards into hunting grounds. You can either put your Barrel of Deadbeards in there, which is a good way of controlling, but mostly you want to be putting your Garg Throwing Imp into hunting grounds, which will make it hunt around the field, really ensure that you're going to be able to get the value, something hitting this. Really good card to put in front of a team up. You can also splash your Garg Throwing Imp with either your Barrel of Deadbeards or with your Fireworks Zombie and make it throw Gargs around the field. Another good finisher is Gas Giant. Not only is it a strong card, when it dies, it hits your opponent's face for 5. It also will splash around to your other splashy cards. And of course, the big finisher in this deck is the Garg Throwing Garg. You either play this into hunting grounds or you use your splash cards in order to activate it. This will be throwing Gargs all around the field. Really, really fun deck to play. It's pretty effective too. It really does get the job done. All right, and I will show you the other one, which is the Boogaloo Swarm deck. This also does work really well. So we're running a combination of early game Swarm. You're running your Unlife of the Party with a lot of 1-drops, particularly the Egg, which really hatches into another minion, so it'll buff your Unlife of the Party to a 3/3 if you play these 2 together, since this counts as 2. Got Con Man, you got Cheese Cutter, really, really strong aggressive cards, running a couple of Quasards. You can also do the Secret Swimmer combo, so any of your 1-drops, you play it onto the field on turn 2, you scoop it up with Secret Agent, it adds 3/3, and then you can play that together with your Secret Swimmer, with your Synchronized Swimmer. on turn 3. So for example, if you've done that with Cheese Cutter, the Cheese Cutter will be a 5/5, and then the Synchronized Swimmer will copy its stats and turn into a 5/5. Really good finishers in this deck are the Area 22 and the Maniacal. The Maniacal, again, if you're swarming with so many minions on the field, it makes Maniacal Laugh a lot more reliable. So this is a really, really good finisher in this deck. This deck it's fine. You know what I mean? Maybe not top tier. Getting the Secret Swimmer combo is not so reliable, but pretty good deck nonetheless. All right, and moving on to Professor Brainstorm. This, in my opinion, is still the absolute best deck in the game. There's so many good decks for Professor Brainstorm, but I believe this is the cream of the crop. It is the Valk Trickster Hybrid new version. The reason why this deck, in my opinion, is the best deck in the game is because it has two of the strongest finishing cards in the entire game, both in one deck. You have Trickster, which, if played with, let's say, Mustache Monument, will do 12 damage to your opponent's face. You can also teleport it in, which will essentially do 12 damage to your opponent's face. And even more powerful is probably the Valkyrie. Every single time one of your guys dies, this will do gain 2 attack, and then you either play this together either with teleport or, even better yet, with Mustache Monument on turn 7. It absolutely just dominates opponents. You can easily have 10, even 20 damage with one of your Valkyries. Now, this deck list that I ran here is very, very specific. This probably is the deck I've worked on the most of any deck in the game in terms of just hours, in terms of figuring out a balance that works. Of course, the obvious flaw of this, the drawback of this deck, is the fact that Trickster requires tricks in order to get activated, and Valkyrie requires minions. So first of all, you have cards like Beam Me Up, which is both a trick and a minion. So not a contradiction there. Same thing really goes with Quasar. It's a minion which creates a trick. Very good, decent control card. Activate both of these. But if you're just running a Valkyrie deck, the main weakness of that deck is what if you don't get Valk? Like, even hard mulliganing in your starting hand, the chances are, if you're running just 4 copies of Valk, chances are you do not get a Valk in your starting hand. If you do that, run the statistics though. If you're running both Valkyrie and Trickster and you're hard mulliganing to get one of them, the chances are you will, and certainly in the first few turns, chances are you will draw them, especially since you have Telepathy in this deck, and you also have teleports in order to cycle through your deck and draw some more cards. You don't have to run the final mission. I find this is very good at controlling. You could run card draw instead, like Fundead Razor would be fine. That's the 3-cost card that draws you 2. That will make it more likely to get your Valkyrie or Trickster by turn 3. But the deck I find like this is really, really reliable, and this is a really good way not only of damaging your opponent, it can also go face, a really good way of activating your Barrel of Deadbeards. Otherwise, you're going to have to spend teleports to put your Barrel of Deadbeards in front of your opponent's minions and control them that way. This is really important for this deck because it's 1 minion. That counts as 2 minions for your Valk. It'll explode and turn into a Captain Deadbeard. Alright, let's keep it going. Alright, the other deck I sort of wanted to honorable mention for Professor Brainstorm, and it's just because this is a really powerful deck that I see someone run this once every 6 months. I think this is so underrated. You can find this on YouTube. It's the Professor Mustache deck, and
but
thank you so much.
Valkyrie and Trickster don't synergize. They are polar opposites. How could this deck be good, SMH?
Thank you, Voice, for subscribing for 13 months, you troll. The Mustache Aggro deck. This is one of the only good decks with Mustache Waxer. If you want to see how to play this deck, you can check the YouTube video out. You basically want to play your Conman on 1, your Mustache Waxer, together with your Grave Robbers on turn 2, and you can play several of them. And you can also play Bungee Plumber, which is also a mustache. This will be really giving your Mustache Waxer enough health to stay on the field and really getting that extra value every single turn. Then when you play your Quasar, you're going to have extra brains to spend that turn. That's why you're running a couple of extra little buff cards like the Sugary Tree. Just have a way of spending those brains. Fruitcake, really, really good. And this is our environment to be adding damage. You're really putting a lot of damage on the field. The big finisher is going to be Mustache Monument, which is also Mustache, and playing on top of that, the Shield Crusher Viking. This does so much damage when you play it right onto the Mustache Monument. Really impossible to counter if you just play Mustache Viking. This also drains your opponent's block meter to help your other cards really set up the finish. So just an honorable mention, because it's a deck that's really powerful, really fun, and not a lot of people know about. All right, let's go to ZMech. So the one I'll show for ZMech, I don't think I have this on YouTube yet, but I will, if I don't, I'll try to put a version of this on YouTube. It is the all-in swarm deck. So this is a really all-in flag zombie swarm. You want to basically pass turn 1 usually, and then play flag zombie with a bunch of 1-drops on 2. We're running 5 different types of 1-drops. So you just want to clog just the field every single turn with as many minions as possible. You also have the Unlife Egg combo, so you can play this, let's say on turn 2, if you don't have flag zombie, you can play this with Egg. This will grow. So even like Con Man on 1, Unlife Egg on 2 is really, really strong. You're also running Teachers. So what the Teachers do, if you have one of these on the field with your flag zombie combo, it allows you to play Sugary Healthy Treat, which will protect your guys, keep them on the field for longer. And it will also give you the opportunity to maybe play Rockwall, Strength, add some more, or one of your superpowers. All these superpowers work really well in this deck. I see I'm running Middle Manager in this version. I'm pretty sure Genetic Experiment is the better card, so you can definitely run that instead of Middle Manager if you have it. Maybe I ran Middle Manager since this is such a swarmy deck. The curve is so low, I maybe wanted a little more opportunity for card draw. Could be that's why I ran that. The finisher in this deck is actually going to be either going viral to give all your guys Frenzy. Again, you can play several copies of these if you have a Teacher on the field, or this card over here, the Primeval Yeti. So if you still have your flag zombie in the field, you can actually play this on turn 4. And this will buff all your guys by 2/2, besides for giving you a 6/6 on the field. I feel like with ZMech, you typically have to play very quickly since he doesn't have very good late game finishers. At least he has a little removal now with Fruitcake, but you kind of just have to swarm the field. You really do need flag zombie to in your starting hands fulfill the full potential in this deck. But again, you have enough happening in the early game. I have won many games with this deck just by throwing 1-drops on them. They need so much small removal in the field clear, and the cards in this deck, even the 1-drops like Conman and Unlife, are actually difficult cards to field clear, to remove with small removal, since they have a decent amount of health. So this deck is pretty effective. All right, so let's move on to the Smash. So the Smash deck I'm going to show you very similar to the ZMech deck, actually. I believe this is going to be one of the best ones. Again, a lot of early game. You got your flag zombie. You also have your Secret Swimmer combo, since this is the BC class. So you can play one of your 1-drops, scoop it up, play together with your Secret Swimmer. I'm also running in this version of the deck, it was pretty good, running Jurassic Fossil Head. This will actually grow. Very difficult card to remove, and then if you put this into Area 22 or give it Frenzy, or even give it Frenzy with Possessed, which is one of Smash's superpowers over there, a very, very difficult card to remove because it's cheap and because it is untrickable. It's also a very good target to copy with your Synchronized Swimmer, because it has very good stats early in the game. This is going to be 4/5s, like a 2-cost 4/5 in the water is really, really good. The only thing I see missing from this particular deck list is Maniacal Laugh. I think if you're really going for the ultimate version of this, I would probably get rid of your Secret Swimmer combo and actually run like Maniacal Laugh and maybe cards like either Warlord or Primeval Yeti in order to buff up your guys. Those work very well with the flag zombie. As I mentioned before, you can kind of play them earlier. I think the Maniacal Laughs are really good for this deck, since you end up with a lot of swarmy little cards, particularly with Fossil Head's a really good combo. Primeval Yeti, again, also will either Intergalactic, Warlord, where are you? Will buff up all your minions. This can be played earlier, or here comes the Yeti. Where's the Yeti? Here you are, like we ran on the ZMech deck. So it could be this. Again, this version has more potential in the early game, but the one I'm saying, once you replace the Secret Swimmer with some more late game, probably will make this deck better. I think we played this exact version as a meme just to see what would happen if we only run 1, 2, and 3 drops in a deck. It's still pretty powerful though. Just relies a little more heavily on the flag zombie. All right, so we're moving right along to Rust Bolt. So Rust Bolt has a lot of really, really good decks. I mean, Rust Bolt's one of the heroes I actually post the most of on YouTube. It's hard to think, like, what is the absolute best Rust Bolt deck. I'm going to be using this as an example. I think probably the Control Trickster decks are still the most reliable decks for Rust Bolt. What I'm showing you here is the Mime Trickster deck. This is actually the first time we ever did a combo between Mime and Trickster. The idea of this is to control the early game with your Trick. So your Trickster is going to cost less and less. You want to get your Trickster down to 4 cost. and really, or to 5 cost, 5 or 4 or 5 cost, and then you want to teleport in your Mime Gargantua on turn 6. Again, the teleport will ensure that your Mime Garg does not get removed. You typically don't want to be playing a big 5-drop just on the field that just gets shamrocketed. This will also, activate your Trickster ability. It'll cost 1 less. So if by the time you play your teleport Mime Garg on turn 6, you have a Trickster in your hand, which costs 4. Let's say you've played 6 tricks. Not very difficult to do in this deck. Together with a Mustache Monument, you have a really neat 22 damage combo in your hand, because the Trickster will do 2 bonus attacks for 12 damage, and then the Mime Garg will add on top of that an extra 10 damage, because it will imitate the bonus attacks of the Trickster. So we've killed so many opponents that way. It's like such a salty way. They have like 20 health and it's all gone. I guess they could block, but you're also doing some damage in the early game, let's say with your Beam Me Ups. You just got to make sure you cycle through their block meter enough. You can also do some damage and draw cards with your Wormhole Gatekeeper. Running a ton of card draw in this deck. 3 Gatekeepers and 4 Funded Razors, because to get Teleport, Trickster, Mime Garg, and Mustache Monument by turn 6 and 7 is not always that easy, so that's why I'm running all that. I was running 1 Cryo Brain. I think it's justified in this deck. So, yeah. All right. 1 Cryo Brain. OCD people, I feel for you. Yeah, me too. There's probably a couple other, if you want to see what my Rust Bowl decks are, just type Frame Up Rust Bowl into YouTube. You'll see a lot of different creative ones. Teleport King decks. Probably the Trickster is the best one. All right, so for Brain Freeze, in my opinion, probably Pirates is the best one. I really like, in this version of the Pirate deck, the fact it's Brain Freeze means you can run Maniacal Laugh. One combo that I think is just ridiculously good, and I don't use it enough because it's Brain Freeze. Here I don't run a lot, is Pogo, Mix Up Gravedigger, Maniacal. This ensures that both of these minions stay on the field, besides for whatever you played the turn before, since the Pogo's bouncing them every turn. You'll have so much tempo on the field, and then you stick a Maniacal Laugh. It becomes so reliable, and again, giving one of your guys 5/5 and Frenzy, it's just so good. So again, we're running Cheese Cutter, not much synergy in the deck, except that's a really good 1-drop. Got your Headstone Carver, your basic Pirates. I ran Line Dancing Zombie. Again, you could run Stealthium. I just find Line Dancing Zombies a little more effective. I find a couple Smoke Bombs is really good in a deck like this. And of course, you're running Area 22, which is a really good way of finishing off your opponent. Give a guy Frenzy. You can use that on your Mixed Up Gravedigger. You can use that on your Flame Face, because if a Flame Face is inside Area 22, then it has 4 attack. And it has Frenzy and Strike Through. So it'll Strike Through. If it kills a minion, it'll do Strike Through again, doing a lot of damage to your opponent's face. Same thing really with the Line Dancing Zombie. So that's a really neat little combo you can do with Pirates. Once again, Mixed Up Gravedigger. If you have a lot of big Pirates on the field, just don't play it. You're not going to need it at that point, since you're probably going to be way ahead. But this gives you a way to come back into the game, particularly with a Maniacal Laugh. I need to bring back this deck, because this combo is really good. Cheese Cutter is the main pirate. I know, right? All right, so for Immorticia, it's hard to say what the best Immorticia deck is. I can show you a Trickster deck with Immorticia. The one I really want to show you, because it's actually really powerful, is the OTK Cat Lady. This is a really fun deck to play. If you haven't seen this, look it up on YouTube. It's called the Salty Cat. I'll definitely be bringing back a version of this. This is a slightly different version. I think this one's a little bit better. The idea is to stall just for many turns and try to accumulate as many lunch boxes in your hand as possible. You're going to be actually teleporting in your zombie yetis in front of your opponents using your teleportation zombie, using your teleports, or you can actually just put zombie yeti into hunting grounds, which will make him hunt around the field. So it sort of turns your dry minions into control cards. And this will be giving you more lunch boxes every turn. You're just going to wait for a late game combo where you either teleport or teleportation zombie one of your cat ladies in, or 2 of your cat ladies in, and play a whole bunch of lunch boxes, which will buff your cat lady by 4 attack each, 3 for the cat lady's ability, 1 for the lunchbox itself. You can also combine that with Witch's Familiar, which is not only a pet superpower, it also is a pet, creates a pet minion, the Zombats, which will buff your cat lady twice. And then you just use Lurch for Lunch to finish them off with this huge attack cat lady. You can get opponents down from 20 health to 0 easily in 1 turn with this deck on turn 6 or 7. So you have plenty of good control. You have a little extra pets. It happens to be hunting grounds. Not only good to set up, make sure you're able to play your Yetis and play your Gatekeeper into the hunting grounds to control your opponent. It also is a pet, so if you need that little extra damage there, definitely has the dual use in this deck. So this is a really fun deck. Again, you can run Trickster. There is a Science deck. OTK Science is really good with the Morticia too. Maybe this will be an honorable mention where you're basically trying to set up your Bullseye Science minions, your Halocopters, and then play Maniacal Laugh on top of them in order to give them that big buff. They'll do a lot of damage, and then you play Gadget Scientist, which does a lot of damage again. I'll probably be making a version of this on YouTube soon if I don't have one already. So this is also a really effective deck. Alright, that deck needs a Zomba, yeah. Alright, so got two more. We got Neptuna and Huge Giganticus. So for Neptuna, I'll show you two different versions, very simple. It's really, this is the pirate version, typical pirate deck. You have Going Viral, which is really nice for pirates. Really good way of giving one of your guys strike through. Pogo, mixed up Gravedigger, and the creative thing in this deck was Intergalactic Warlord, because if you have a lot of pirates on the field, this will make you win more. This also is a pirate, so it does get strike through and buffs from your Swashbuckler. Also, if you play mixed Warlord on the field, and this will buff all your guys permanently by 1/1 for the rest of the game, and if you put mixed up Gravedigger on the field, that will activate the Warlord's ability again when it pops out of a gravestone. So now all your guys have a permanent 2/2 buff for the rest of the game, which is, again, if you get controlled in the early game, that makes you just come back from behind and just kill them with your strike through minions. Even Headstone Carver, if it's a 3/5, becomes really good at that point. The other sort of idea, instead of going early game pirates, you can also go with a flag zombie early game combo. Since this is the Hardy class, so you have your flag, your swarm, you have your Pogo Mug, and your Warlord. Similar idea, just instead of early game pirates, you have early game swarm. The pirates are probably better. And for Huge Giganticus, so this I think is the hero I use the most in this game. So again, if you want to see the Huge Giganticus decks, just check out the Frame Up Gaming channel. There's plenty of them there. The two I'm going to be showing you is first the Tryhard one. Now, when I did this deck in the stream, it went 7-3, but a lot of those games were actually in the most recent fail compilation or highlight compilation. We had a lot of unlucky games, but this is a really powerful deck. This is a Pogo mix-up Gravedigger Trickster deck. So you're using a lot of your early game tricks. I love having Dr. Spacetime together with Thinking Cap. Very effective strategy, because then you can play your two trick superpowers for free on turn 4. Since they're conjured, the Spacetime will make them cost less. I also kind of ran Leap as a joke in this deck, which is fine, mostly to be using on your Pogo and your mix-up Gravedigger. Again, you're going to be charging your Trickster, playing to Mustache Monument. You can just win with Pogo, mix-up Gravedigger, and Leaps. This was a pretty powerful deck. I really like also when you play Trickster on the field, does 6 damage. You can actually then play mixed-up Gravedigger, which pops it back into a Gravestone, and then that will pop out and do an extra 6 damage. That's a really cool combo. Yeah, I know there's no turn 1 control in this deck, but the control is either playing your ultimate is really good. Playing this guy, because they have to deal with it since it's doing a lot. Also, Ice Moon in a pinch is able to control. Also, not a lot of 1-drop tricks, but you have Teleportation Station. I don't know if this deck is really good. It's probably just a meme. I don't really know what's the Tryhard Huge Giganticus deck. But of course, the one that I'm going to show you. This deck is actually very effective. You win a lot of games with this. Is Conjure Leap. This was titled the best deck of 2018. Man, that's a long time ago, almost 2 years ago.
Thanks for streaming, Fry.
Thank you, Yeah Boy Yeah Games. Thanks for subscribing. That's 8 months. So you're going to be leaping all of your cards into higher cost cards. So you can, let's say, play Brain Vendor, which is a 3-cost card. Gives you 3 brains. You can either leap it with your Evolutionary Leap, or put a Transformation Station on top of that. That turns your essentially free card into a 4-cost card. You have your Pogo Mug, which you can leap, so you can actually really effectively play Interdimensional Zombie on turn 1. If they're not able to deal with that, you just play Transformation Station on turn 2. That means you're coming into turn 3 with a 4-cost card. The Interdimensional Zombie turns into a 3-cost card when you play the environment, and then leaps into a 4-cost card. Which is really effective. The cards you conjure from your Dr. Spacetimes are also cheaper, so if you play them on the field, let's say you get a 3-cost card, you play it for 2, when you leap it, it turns into a 4. The best example of this is when you play Dr. Spacetime together with one of your Buried Treasures. So Buried Treasure makes it legendary, conjures a legendary that costs 1 less, and Dr. Spacetime actually will then make it cost 2 less. So you have, let's say, a 5-cost legendary, you're playing it for 3, and you're leaping it into a 6-cost card, which is ridiculous. The only difference between this and the original version of the deck, I believe in the original version I was running Barrels, which again has gotten nerfed, I believe, since then. They used to cost 1. That was a good Conjure card. Maybe I was running even Cosmic Scientist. I was probably experimenting with either Cosmic Scientist for an extra Conjure, which you can run, but I just find it's more fun to run Bad Moon Rising. It also, again, works very well with some of your cheap cards. You don't have a lot of ramp. It does work very well with Brain Vendor, though, because you can play this for free and then hit them with Bad Moon Rising. Really kind of works well with Pogo Mug, too, because this makes you end up having a lot of minions on the field to set up the Bad Moon Rising. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed. That is the best decks of 2020. Let me know what you think is the best deck in the comment section below. Politely, please. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace. This is Fry. Everyone's okay? Everyone in the chat's okay? I know there's... I'm going to try to explain this again. I really don't want to be coming after anyone in particular, even though I probably am focusing this on some people in particular. It's really nice we have people with different opinions than me in the chat. I definitely appreciate hearing people's other opinions. It's just this... when you give off a feeling of where you really are very strong about your opinions in someone else's chat. Again, if you want to make your own stream, that would be a really appropriate place to do that. But in someone else's stream, be really strong and aggressive and kind of singling people out, you know, adding people a lot and stuff like that. And you just give this vibe that you really expect people to value your opinion. Again, when you're doing it in someone else's platform, I think that it's not going to be received well. You kind of sort of have to have this little bit of social awareness to really understand exactly what I'm saying. Just to like, you want to like throw your opinion out, but be very friendly. Be very, very nice. Again, if you have your own platform, that's the right place to be having really strong opinion. I don't have a problem within Reddit that people have like really, they're making really strong posts and stuff there, and you know, even criticizing me strongly there. I have no problem with that. Maybe just try to be really gracious when doing that in the Twitch chat. That's just my opinion. I think that's also, I think most of the people in the chat, you know, even if they're not, I think the reason they negatively react sometimes to when people do that is for the same reason. They feel like it's just coming on a little too hard. That's all I want to say. But in general, really appreciate having people in the chat who disagree with me and have different opinions. And again, I really did shout out, let's say, the Reddit decks a couple times. So I really do appreciate, you know, even in this stream, I'm talking about the best decks in the games are, even though most of them have a little different version. And that's just because I feel like we have a lot to learn from everyone, you know? I don't think Reddit is full on toxic. I think there's just a few people who, again, come off a little bit strong, and they sort of, unfortunately, give that community a bad reputation when really, for the most part, that community is very nice people. I've joined the PvZ Reddit. It's the Discord server, and I've talked to, I never talked to Justini, but I talked to Sushi, who's like kind of one of the leaders of that. And we even played a few matches. We played like Mid-Rose versus Valtrickster Hybrid. I had a lot of fun doing that. I'd like to do that again. Anyway, without getting into people in particular, let's just try to. I know I pump it up a little bit. Sometimes I'll make little sarcastic comments about Reddit during my stream and stuff like that, which is fine. Again, I know some people might take that the wrong. They'll take it as aggression. I hope people realize whenever I do that, I mean that as a joke, and I mean that as very friendly competition. I sort of like the, thank you, Dasher Man.
Reddit
17
decks.
months.
Nah, fry em up decks. Yes.
The point is, I like, there's the little drama, the little tension between the two different communities. I think that's nice. I think a little friendly competition, a little trash talking is fine, but it's, imagine if I would go to like, you know, the Reddit, the Discord server and start saying, everyone, you have to listen to me. These are the decks and here's exactly why I'm coming really strong, and not having a sort of a chill sense of humor about it. I probably would not be appropriate as well. So anyway.